Hey everyone, Eric Watson here, freelance writer, player of games, writer of words, recorder of videos, and a tabletop role-playing aficionado. Welcome to the Monday edition of Bye Bye, weekly behind-the-scenes DM-only live stream Crafting the Deep, in which I build, write, and prepare for our next session of Call from the Deep. We're playing characters Gottwald, Max Sabra, or Toro. This stream is not meant for you. It'll be full of spoilers, but the rest of you are always welcome. We stream our D&D sessions live on YouTube every Friday. You can join our official Discord server with invite link in the description below. If you'd like to support the channel, please check out patreon.com/Rogue Watson. For our campaign, we use Roll20. For streaming, I use OBS Studio. We are still in the Styes. We are at the end of the Styes, I believe. And it's going to be a really nasty fight for the party. Now that things have kind of happened, maybe we can discuss this fight a little bit and do my usual hand-wringing over how worried I am for the players, even though I constantly underestimate them and they always come out on top. This is a big boss fight for them, however. I'm not going to be holding any punches. Goodness, I hope it's not like a TPK or something, because I really don't have, like, the Mind Flayer is not exactly somebody who's going to... I guess he could try to enthrall people. I'm probably getting ahead of myself here with that. Twirl, I know, has 0 spell slots left because he used both spell slots banishing a scum, which he's still technically concentrating on. That is just off the field now. Max, okay, still a devastating presence to deal with. Gottwald, however, has just been mind-controlled by the Mind Flayer, so that's going to be an issue for the party to deal with, unless they can, of course, break concentration, which I'm sure Mac will be trying to do that as quickly as possible. And then Savra got thrown into the pit with the Chules, which is going to be very nasty. I have not actually rolled initiative yet for the Chul boys. But Savra is at a 4, so odds are in initiative order. So odds are the Chules will get a chance to go before her, and they have a chance to paralyze and do all kinds of really, really nasty things down there. So the party is really going to be split up and dealing with multiple threats. So we'll see how they handle that. I think probably the best thing to do for him is for Mac to have Cheese fly her out of there, which I would maybe allow with an athletic check or something. Trying to carry somebody who's... It's only a 5-foot drop, though. It's not like it's a huge pit down here. But yeah, this should be a pretty nasty fight for the party. I also plan on having layer actions for our boss Mind Flayer friend, because he's a boss. He deserves them. He's got legendary resistance to avoid would-be banishments, but Twirl already spent his banishments, so I don't have to worry about that too much. You already saw his Psychic Deflection in action, which is part of his stat block already, I believe. He can also command allies as a bonus action, let them attack, which is his thrall he's got right here. Or could, technically, I just realized, also be a mind-controlled Gottwald. I would absolutely let him do that. I just realized he can use his bonus action to have Gottwald punch people. And then I changed one of his abilities he had as an action over to a legendary action, which is this telepathic reinforcement. Basically, all of his allies get advantage on attack rolls until the start of his next turn, and then he can make an attack as a bonus action. He can also do like a damaging thing around him, or kind of the effects of Crown of Madness momentarily as a layer action. So yeah, this is going to be a pretty damn big fight for the party. It should feel like the most challenging thing they've come across. They were fully rested going into here, so I have no problems about hitting them with everything that I've got. So I'm looking forward to this battle, but I also, due to real life scheduling, really want to wrap up this entire section this Friday, because we'll be taking the 19th off. So that's gonna motivate me to probably introduce the Kraken fight right here on this screen versus having them go down into a watery tunnel or something. So I'll give them a little bit of advantage there. They can fight it perhaps on land instead of in the water, but they will have to fight it after this boss fight. I could probably give them a short rest, would be the best thing to do in between these boss fights, because we only canonically have 5-minute short rest. So I get to say, okay, you hear this creature coming, you all can quickly, get your short rest things back, which is going to be huge for Gottwald and Twirl especially, and hell, Salvar could use Arcane Recovery and stuff before this guy shows up. And the Juvenile Kraken is going to be alone, so it'll probably be bursted down quite quickly. But, as long as it makes a cool show for it, and the party could be really in bad shape having dealt with this fight here. So if you are against that idea, then do let me know. But I think that's my plan right now. Again, trying to wrap up what's going to end up being 2 probably big boss fights in one session, and perhaps try to do like the falling action from the Styes, although there's really not necessarily that much. You basically, this is the end of it. You found out, yeah, this is the Mind Flayer. He was behind everything. And the big twist is that they had used their Elder Brain controlled Kraken to spawn a juvenile Kraken, and were nurturing it here in the Styes and doing all those murders and bad things to feed and grow and control this Kraken into a servant of the Mind Flayer army, and the players are thankfully here to stop that. I'm not really in the path of the storm. I kind of mentioned this in the Monday update. In fact, we got like the tail end of it, actually. Houston's getting annihilated right now in terms of flooding and power outages and whatnot. But we're way up north near Dallas. We're like 5 or 6 hours away, I think, from Houston. Texas is pretty big. And even so, we got a little bit of, it's been raining, like drizzling, I would say, all day. So we're like at the very, very edge of Hurricane Barrel. But yeah, we all thought it was going to be a lot worse, actually, up here. But apparently not. Fucking fly just got in my coffee. Oh, shit. Asshole. God, that's the worst. Need to pluck him out. I think I got him. Hope it was worth it, Fly. You died for that sip. Duca, good to see you. I'm looking at the Kraken now, which does include legendary actions, but again, I may change that to layer actions. I may just do that going forward, just for my own sanity and ability to keep track of monsters. It seems like using layer actions just works a lot better for me and my party, even though that is technically a nerf for boss monsters. Although a lot of these would only be able to use maybe once a round anyway, so I'll just probably change those to layer actions. And nobody used my Kraken Amulet. Do you like that? I love that Chris even brought up the one that I destroyed in Storm King's Thunder, which I do remember, and that was a shocking moment. I thought it was a cool RP moment, but Chris literally had devised this like special magic item for my character, but it was from a kind of villainous NPC. I think my character's like ex-girlfriend, and then she had joined the Kraken Society, and was like giving me this amulet at the end of the quest chain, and I like rejected it because it was like a symbol of the Kraken Society, and my character was like totally against that, and I was like, it makes sense, but he was like, damn it. And here it was. It's funny, it's also a Kraken Society item, but everybody's like, no, we're not doing that, I don't want any piece of that. And it wasn't even the secret is it's not even cursed. It wasn't even a cursed item. It was just a regular ass item. I didn't even think to curse it. I probably could have, but the party was like, no, I don't want any piece of that. And then I literally had it be like the key to getting into this dungeon. Which, yeah, we all just said like, oh yeah, well of course we're hanging on to that thing. That's what I get. I always like the idea of having, villains actually have the items and players get those items. But I guess you do have to realize that, players may be very suspicious of said item then, which, makes sense. I guess we can just start. I mean, there's not much else for me to talk about here. This, unless somebody has any advice or warnings about this battle to come. But I think we're already kind of in the middle and in the thick of it. So obviously, like I said, there's only 5 feet difference, so the Chul can just climb their way out of here and become combatants, which are going to be terrible for the party because they've got 100 hit points each. They're just nasty pants. I mean, yeah, Matt can do, 30 damage a round or something. Gottwald can do close to that. Gottwald's currently dominated, however. Savra can do a shit ton of damage, but she's also pretty squish, and she's in a bad spot, so... Twirl's, sadly for Reese, the character I'm least worried about because, as I said, he just spent his 2 spell slots, so he's just going to be auto-attacking and pushing people around with the Eldritch Blast. But we've talked about what we want to do in the future after the Styes, which is introduce some of those other locations from Call from the Deep, from Chapter 3 of Call from the Deep, and put the pirate captains there in different situations. So the party is going to be motivated to take one of them down. They'll be able to meet with Captain Callus in the town of Mintarn, which will be kind of neutral ground. I thought about even having like a Black Armada person there. Oh shit, maybe I could do that. Because I've been trying to rack my brain around using all 4 of them in that the party has to deal with. Although that would kind of take away from the fact that they have to go and decide which one to do. So if I throw one at them right there at like for a tavern brawl, then that kind of defeats the purpose. We also already did have a tavern brawl, or I wanted to make sure we had at least one tavern brawl in this campaign, and we did have one earlier in Neverwinter. That was the climax of the Pirate Skyhold quest chain. So I've got ideas for 3 of them, which is one of them is an Omen's Isle, looting the tomb there, which is gonna have the cool like Bigoron sword for Gottwald. And canonically it's the Storm Maiden, but I could switch that out. Nerino has the underwater vampire lady, who perhaps I haven't quite decided if the bad guys were going to specifically go to her and like recruit her, or if they were going to loot her lair and then didn't realize she was there. And either way, they probably end up getting murderized. And then the big twist there is that maybe the party has to fight like a few vampire spawn or something, and they're like, oh shit, what happened here? And then she shows up, and then it could actually be a social interaction versus a combat fight with the vampire lady, because she's a little more amenable to talking. So that's 2 of them, and then a third idea I had is just for Callus to tell the party that like, yeah, one of the captain's jobs is just to hunt you all. Like you all have rocketed to the top of the Black Armada's most wanted list, and that one captain is bringing down all their stuff on you, hunting you down. So just keep your heads on a swivel for that, and that obviously would trigger a major scripted encounter for the party just somewhere at sea, and we can have a big, ship to ship battle and do that whole big thing with one of the captains, whichever one I think would be the best to encounter like on their own ship, which is probably either going to be the Slod or the Naga. I'll have to look at their stat blocks and see how well they look. In fact, I wonder if they're in where does it list their stat blocks? Maybe just named NPCs. Those are creatures, named NPCs. So, what are their names? I have to remember. Captain Scummer is the Slod. I like that he can cast Fireball, but that's not very great for ship combat. Unless he's obviously lobbing a Fireball at the enemy ship, then that can be fantastic. Yeah, he's all about just shooting flames. He does have a lot of good range attacks, so he might actually be the best option. Although surely the Naga's also got some good spells. CR8. What was the Naga's name? Desecratus Profanus, which is a great name. Yeah, the Naga's got 5th level spells. Dominate Person, Blight, Dimension Door, Lightning Bolt, Hold Person, all kinds of spells. So that would also be a good candidate for a ship. And then, like I said, I'm just trying to figure out what the 4th one is, because there are those 4. The Storm Maiden seems to be kind of the least interesting, although it could be cool in terms of she's got all these magic weapons, magic items that make her interesting. She's just not a monster like the others are. And then the party would then be able to get those items. And then I would be able to eliminate all the wands that Dirge has, although I could let the party have some. Because he would just be killed by the vampire lady, I think. I would just use his crew as like Sawagan vampire spawn or something. I do have those locations from chapter 2 that I could look at including. I used one of them, which was where the Aboleth was, House of Knowledge. One of them is the Umberlee's Cache, which is an underwater treasury thing that's where the Merid Conch is found. And I kind of mentioned to the party that like this canonically happened in our game, and that Tentrix was able to get the conch, which is where the Merid is, and they'll be able to deal with that later, which is really just me. I don't even know if I want Tentrix to even use the Merid against them. It'd just be a case of like, hey, you guys get this item when you defeat Tentrix, and then that opens up another quest that you can do. I think this is all underwater too. Yeah, underwater cave. In the deep water harbor. Let's see. Sea rates. Summon a bearded devil. This is when the Sawagan are attacking. Which I obviously don't want to use. A Reek Merc. Inside is the married conch, Reekmerk lair. What is a Reekmerk? It's not a word I like saying. Reekmerk. Underwater oozes found in the depths of frigid oceans. CR4 ooh. Now I would have to scale these up if I was going to use them because they're for earlier chapters. But all these locations have to have a reason that the Black Armada would be there also. The other ones are the towers, which is there's a tower in Baldur's Gate, Razmith's Tower, and then there's the Sea of Urfong Tower, which I was going to tie into the zombie turtle thing as a way for the party to get their final passage or final challenge to get to Tentrix's lair, which is, it's really starting to feel like Tentrix is like the final act, right? They're doing all these different things to try to just get to that lair, but in fact, the Tentrix's lair will take out like basically the head of the Black Armada, complete Gottwald's big quest, and then that will give them the final location they need, which is Purple Rocks and Ascarl. So this actually does have a good motivation for the Black Armada. This is the pirates are trying to kidnap somebody. Ramazith Flamesinger. So that would actually tie in pretty well. And that would be a little bit different than the other two, which are looting a place and recruiting a vampire lady. Storm the tower looking to capture him. Briefly, I could also use somebody who's canonically not Ramazith and not in Baldur's Gate because I'd probably want to move that somewhere. So I use the Slod. They have the shape changer things. You can make them look like a regular pirate captain and something blammo Slod time. Well, except if I tip my hand, and say that the party, and I was going to give them a heads up via Captain Callus that one of the pirate captains is hunting the party down. So if they just saw a regular pirate, well, I guess that's the interesting thing, right? It depends on how much information I give the party. If Callus straight up says like, oh yeah, and that's Captain Scummer who's hunting you, then it obviously doesn't matter if he uses a shape change, because as soon as a pirate ship comes into view, they're going to assume that's what it is. If I don't give them the information, then that would be maybe an interesting twist. But also the party would just know like, oh shit, the enemy ship would fly Black Armada flags. Like they're super proud to be villains. Like there's not gonna be any kind of gray area here at this point. Like they're just at war hunting the party down. So maybe for that reason, the slot isn't the best one, and I should use a slot in one of the other areas where the shape changer could be more interesting versus having like the Naga, the eye patch wearing Spirit Naga on the ship encounter. But yeah, I could do a little tower one as a third location if I really want to throw a bunch of locations at them. And all of these should be pretty small. And hopefully I can find maps for them as well. I could just say this is some wizard who lives in some other... Let's see, what's the area look like? So this isn't Baldur's... Well, Baldur's Gate is actually to the south. I'm nervous about including Baldur's Gate, though, because then it's like, well, now they're in another big-ass city. Although last time, well, I love that we just stopped in Waterdeep, did that hilarious, like, shopping episode and didn't do anything else in Waterdeep. Even though I could have done, like, dozens of different things. But there's enough content in this adventure, we don't need to actually use the Sword Coast cities, ironically. And I used the Crap Out of Neverwinter, right? That was, like, the main one I used. If we stop in Baldur's Gate, then maybe it's like, oh, yeah, we hit the triple crown of hitting all three of the big cities on the Sword Coast, and that would be the excuse. Would be, oh yeah, we got heard. We got word that one of the Black Armada. The bummer is in the story, the reason they're able to do this is because there's a big attack on Baldur's Gate, and then during that attack is when they launch their kidnapping raid on Ramazith's tower. So it's not like the Black Armada would be able to pull up to Baldur's Gate and like disembark and march over to the tower and try to kidnap him. You know, even under cover of night or something, that would be pretty difficult to do in a major ass city without a giant like war going on. So that's why I'm tempted, if I do the tower thing, is perhaps I need to move it to where it's outside of the city or somewhere where there's just a random tower, you know, somewhere else, I guess. I don't know. Could have it be Candlekeep, but I think Candlekeep also has like a shit ton of badass defenses to keep anybody from just rolling up on Candlekeep. I want to keep everything to the southern half, though. The idea here is that, like, the Black Armada is active down here. All the main captains are down here. Their bases in the Nilanther Isles. So all the locations should be around here. They'll go to Mintarn. It'll be an easy one to go to because they can hit up there to get all this information. The Omen's Isle quest will be, can be like just one of these random isles here instead of having to go in the Moonshay Isles. Or because I could stick some of them in the Moonshay, but maybe not like in the middle of them, maybe on the edge. What was the other one? The Narina underwater. Merfolk Castle can be literally anywhere in the sea, so I'll need to move the tower somewhere in here. Reading about it now, Ram, is that there's a tower being broken, please. So that could be maybe the clue is that, like, oh, I heard that they're trying to, they've got like designs on a wizard who lives in this remote tower somewhere, and it was a lot about marine creatures or something. Animated tree. I feel like if you're in a wizard who loves marine creatures, you would have a little bit more of a thematic tower. What is an Ixit-Tixit-Chi? What the fuck is that? Oh, okay. Kind of flying manta eel thing. Ik-Zit-Za-Chittle. Aquatic creatures resembling manta rays. Okay. Are as evil as they are cunning. Oh dear, they're chaotic evils. They're not beasts. They have a 12 intelligence. They're smarter than most people. Okay. But they only have a swim speed. They attack intruders by leaping from the water, making bite attacks as they leap. This causes them to provoke opportunity attacks. Huh. What's the water area? This is R1, the antechamber. Oh, okay. So it's a giant pool area. Huh. But the bad guys must have already come in here. Right? One of the bodyguards is fighting. There you go. Crane sighted here. One of the body captain bodyguards is fighting the animated tree. Both have half their hit points remaining. I guess you could always reflavor an animated tree as some kind of marine thing. Swarm of spell books. This is just kind of a generic wizard tower. It's definitely a case of like, oh, the world is frozen until the party shows up, right? Because like I give them this information, it's like, yeah, I think they're working on hunting down this wizard. And then if the party then shows up, then they'll just be able to see the bad guy's ship like parked out there, maybe in the distance, and see the tower, and they'll be like, all right, well, I guess we got to go fight the tower. Giant animated coral, animated kelp, yeah. You get away with a lot of stat blocks if you just think to reskin them as something else, including like maybe the names of their attacks and just like the look of the thing, but then you can just keep the stat block. The deranged owner of the tower. Everybody likes a deranged wizard. I love the sentence. Despite the wealth of flammable material in the study, he is not shy with his fireballs. That's fabulous. Singeing the party with friendly fire from a dude they're trying to rescue would be fabulous. He's a pearl of power and a ring of protection and 5,000 gold. A spell book, potions. Kind of interesting. I mean, I'm hoping I can make it work for a higher level. This is all designed for more like 4th level, probably maybe 5th level at this point. And my party will be 9th by the time they would tackle this. Not that all these have to be like super challenging, but I'm not creating a big dungeon crawl here, right? I'm splitting up all of these in individual encounter areas. So all of these are basically on like one long rest scale. So they're all going to be a lot easier than a big dungeon would be, which the Tentrix layer is going to be a pretty good sized dungeon. and they will not be leveling up between all this stuff, but they can get another long rest before tackling it. So I could do that. I could introduce the Ramesses Tower dungeon with just probably not use Ramesses himself, but a reasonable facsimile of a wizard who's just maybe on an island somewhere. I guess there's always another Ghost of Saltmarsh module, but they're all too long. I don't really want to introduce even parts of them. And then there's always other content outside of this that I could use. A lot of stuff that's, on the coast or whatnot, but it would just be, I'd say it'd be easier, but also I'm still having to find maps for all this stuff because I can't use these freaking maps. I think it would really help my prep process once I actually start throwing maps in here as well and stop just talking about it. Because right now I'm still in the pre-production phase of everything, and it can be daunting to talk about this stuff without being able to actually look and plan and see the maps in action. And same thing with the Tentrix layer. Like, I need to get that put down into roll 20. I need to really figure out if I'm going to use the official map, which is not very big, or if I'm going to use a different map that's kind of got the same idea of a bunch of ships lashed together. Probably help if I went ahead and just looked at chapter 4, and maybe that would help inform the previous areas. Yeah, Driftwood Docks, the layer of Sea King Tentrix is only found on D10 of the island. So we talked about that, how the fact that, yeah, you can find them on other isles, but actually finding the base is going to be a lot more difficult. There's still, whatever, I think I measured this the other day, but yeah, 200 miles to search in the water, and it's very, very dangerous territory full of pirates and creatures. And that's where you need the compass that all the pirate captains possess, and that's why the party would be motivated to go after one of them. Although it might not even be that. It might be, especially if Gottwald just says like, hey, yeah, we should go take out all of Tentrix's captains. That makes a lot of sense. I could also do an interesting thing that I respect a lot of video games do this, which is if the party has the option to take out some of those pirate captains and they elect not to, they only take out like one and then move on with the quest, I could then sort of punish the players and have those pirate captains show up back at the base or show up for an encounter or something to where they do have to deal with them eventually, or maybe make their, a different situation that much more challenging. Crew, they could blend in. Great. That's going to be something I definitely want to do. I sold a magic item to get the Hat of Disguise. Fighter characters more suitable attire. They can infiltrate the ship. Which the Driftwood Docks is actually not the same thing as Tentrix's floating lair. I need to figure out what the relationship is there. Because the docks just lead to the lair, I assume. So roster table. Which the roster table does include, I believe, all of the pirate captains. So they would not be there, obviously. Dirge is one of them. Storm Maiden. Scummer and Desecrates are all there too. Zombie Ogre, Colossal Octopi. Nice, nice, nice. Floating lair is considered the lair of Karen. See, lesser pirates. Yeah, there's at least like 2 there. It's also, what is the, Powder, I think is the gnome. There's a few like named pirates they're always on the table, which is another reason why I felt I could use those other pirate captains in different areas. Clip lesser pirates, and it tells me anything. Sea King Tentrix, Desecrates, Dirge, Jarl Bluebeard, Storm Maiden. Lesser pirates is Karen, which is a Marinoloth, capable of captaining the ship. Powder, which is a gnome. A gnome swashbuckler. And then, what is it? Grab it. Next. Goblin boss. Okay. Scummers got a rug of smothering. Well, this is just this is the floating layer though. I'm getting ahead of it. So what about travel to the Pirate Isles is here, which mentions getting them to reach Driftwood Docks, and then Driftwood Docks is this, which I think I did find better art somewhere. I wonder where I found this one. Eric, why didn't you write down this one? I'm usually pretty good about doing that these days. Do a reverse Google search. Because they have to do this is like how you even get to the lair, right? Ship graveyard held by nastiest pirates at Sword Coast. In the center of these wooden islands is a deep harbor containing the lair of Sea King Tentrix, a dozen partially dismembered pirate vessels that are lashed together to form a floating fortress. Drifted docks constantly patrolled by pirates loyal to Tentrix. In charge of the defense of the docks is Jarl Bluebeard, a brutal frost giant on the verge of insanity who has a habit of hurling rocks. Characters who arrive at Driftwood Docks must navigate the treacherous waters and overcome the defenses of the ship graveyard before they can enter the bay containing Tentrix's lair. Okay. So yeah, before they can even make it to that area, they have to go through Driftwood Docks. But I think they do that via their ship. Yeah, this is a skill challenge, according to the adventure. The characters fail 3 checks before succeeding on 5. The ship is battered by the rocks and reefs, taking 55 bludgeoning damage, 10d10. Characters still reach their destination provided the ship isn't destroyed by this damage. I want to say their ship has around 200 hit points. The characters succeed on 5 checks before failing through. They arrive safely at the destination and avoided the dangers of Driftwood Docks. Okay. It's not a bad use of it, I guess. So that's just, okay, arriving. So they do the skill challenge just to get to Driftwood Docks first. Dangerous water surrounding Driftwood Docks. Okay. So you could say there's kind of a skill check. Even though they know where they're going, they still have to make a skill check just to make it to Driftwood Docks. And then once there, we do kind of enter. Does it have a scale on here for these squares? I guess I should look at the actual map. Which is where? Pirate Isles. Yes. What's the scale here? Alright, it's only 10-foot squares. So surely this isn't meant to have actual ships go through here, and yet why would they get off their ship yet? Am I missing that part? The entrance to Driftwood Docks is a few hundred feet wide and consists of a handful of gullies between the cliffs. So yeah, wouldn't you be on your ship? Because that makes a big difference. The entrance is guarded by 26 thugs, 3 ogres, 3 minotaurs, led by Jarl Bluebeard, who is a frost giant, and first mate Jander Stayanaga, a gladiator. The entrance is 10 bandit reinforcements. And there's a ballista. Or ballistae. It might. I think the idea is supposed to be they're on their ship if it's 100 feet across, but none of these things are big enough. But then aren't they supposed to pull their ship up to the floating layer? How else are they supposed to get in the layer? Land of Drift Docks is not stable ground. Made of hundreds of smashed ships thrown together in a ramshackle pile on top of a bed of rocks. Cliffs and islands are 50 feet tall. The northeast is a ruined tower. A bowl of commanding water elementals, which the Jarl uses the first time enemies are detected. That's cool. Sends the elementals to attack ship captains. Well, how big is their ship? Let's look at that. How wide is it? It looks like it's 40 or 50 feet across. I'm wrong. It's 30 feet across. In fact, we're really going to be picky. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. No, yeah, it's about 30. I'd say 25 to 30 feet across. And probably 100 feet long. It's 90 feet long. Okay. Can I fit that on this map? That would be an interesting situation if you're having to navigate your ship through combat encounters where your ship is actually moving. That would make this area a little more interesting. But maybe that's the idea. The ship could like barely. I'm measuring it right now, and I'm looking at 5. So that's basically 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 would be like you're sucking it in to squeeze through this one area that doesn't have bridges across it. But it'd be interesting because the boat would have to super slow down, and then that would allow all these enemies to attack while your ship's moving. I think that would be a damn near interesting situation. I would have to take their ship token and scale it down relative to this map size, which is a 10-foot square map size. But I think I'm actually liking that idea. It makes it a much different, memorable combat encounter. If they have to take their ship through these just tall ass mountainous juts of rock, with just ramshackle bridges spanning them. But the whole idea is they just have to make it through this gauntlet of enemies who I hope all have range attacks, although I don't believe the ogre does, unless you gave them range attack. All right, they've got javelins. But also the ship would have to literally slow down to a crawl, which would quickly allow all these enemies, I assume, to leap onto said ship. Then you've got the Frost Giant, who's got the very classic hurling rock maneuver, which I believe is literally an ability called Rock. Oh shit, he's got a tentacle rod too, apparently. I don't know if I'll let him use that, because that's kind of Toral's MO. Rock is a +9 to hit, 60-foot range without disadvantage, and deals 4d10 plus 6 bludgeoning damage. Wears a ring of swimming and wields a tentacle rod, is what it says. Beard. What? One of his abilities is called Beard. It's on a recharge. The Jarl swings his beard before him in a 15-foot cone. Each creature in the area must make a dex saving throw, taking 3d10 plus 6 beard damage on a failed save, or half as much damage on a successful one. It says bludgeoning. I editorialized a bit there. That's not a usual Frost Giant ability, right? They don't just swing their beard. Why would the beard do bludgeoning damage? That's a heavy fucking beard. You've been beard slapped. That's funny. But also he has access to a bowl of commanding water elementals, which he can use to summon a water elemental at the party. So he's got all kinds of shit. So I'm liking that idea. Filled with whirlpools. I'm gonna throw more stuff at the party. That's a hell of a thing. This is like the most protected ass area. Holy shit. They gotta make it through a zombie dragon turtle patrolling the outside of the Nelanthers. Inside, they gotta make a skill challenge to avoid taking a shit ton of damage to their ship. Once they find Driftwood Docks, they have to pass through this gauntlet of enemies who are all very well armed with like magic items, and then you still have to do the dungeon crawl. This is all presumably on the same long rest. So I do have to be aware when I'm looking at Tentrix's floating layer area that, like, hey, they may be already quite drained of resources by the time they even make it to this layer. And it's still a pretty big area. It's like 20 rooms. Although I am making it easier by taking a lot of the pirate captains out of it. In fact, just about all of them. Moving them to where the only ones here really is going to be Tentrix, generic minions, and then the couple of lesser pirate captains, which is whichever ones I mentioned, Powder and Karen, I think. But weirdly, it seems to want to let the players infiltrate. This is fascinating. The crew is constantly rotating. Pirates who make it to port serve for 10 days on the vessel before setting sail again because this cruise mixture. But if they're fighting their way through Driftwood Docks, okay, if the characters are noticed at the entrance to Driftwood Docks, or if they make their presence known aboard the layer, the crew rush to battle stations. The actions of the crew are summarized by the layer roster table over. Leave characters are likely to be noticed either by the lookouts the enter Driftwood Docks or by Blurg, the Goblin Lookout Area 20. Right, so I want them to fight their way through Driftwood Docks, but maybe the party is going to be like, no, we're going to adopt this very complicated ruse and act like we're Black Armada coming through. That would be admittedly disappointing if they did bluff their way inside Driftwood Docks. The problem is I kind of want them to bluff their way a little bit through the floating layer, but I feel like if we're fighting the battle here at Driftwood Docks, then wouldn't that already alert, assuming they're fairly close, everybody? That's like the whole point of having guards posted, right? Is at least one person is like, all right, I gotta go warn like the rest of the base that the players are here. And thus all of Tentrix's floating layer suddenly becomes a high alert, and it just becomes kind of a regular attack, I guess, which makes it a lot more harder for the players because it sounds like the layer also is like battle stations, and yeah, it even says they have different creatures that can run to man the ballistas and the bolters and the cannons and everything. So that makes a huge difference if one has turned this into one big action sequence after another versus have any kind of anything else, basically. And maybe my opinion will change and evolve when we get closer to it. Inconceivable. And I love it when they do, but it would suck to have this really interesting scenario and the players be able to just do a couple social things and then it's their hand waved through. You could make the argument like, well, once shit hits the fan, which it always does, and they have to battle Tentrix and they have to fight their way out, but boy, I've never liked doing like having leftover shit after the story and the boss and all the stuff of the dungeon has concluded. I'd rather just montage and wait and hand wave everything else, because to me that's just like we've told that story. And also maybe, or that could be a good excuse why they get their hands on the married conch and then they like rub the lamp. They're like, all right, married, we need you to get us out of here because we're stuck in the middle of this hell place. The real reason I want to do that is because the married can get them out of there, but he's going to teleport them to the elemental plane of water and do that whole fun bit from that side quest, which is mostly social related and role playing in the elemental plane of water. And the party can get a, I believe, like flying ship, or maybe I'll make it a submarine or something. And that will allow them to very effectively fast travel all the way to the other end of the ocean, which is where the finale happens. So a lot of this area might be empty. Maybe I don't want to use every single pirate captain then. Maybe that would make the Tentrix's lair too empty now that I'm looking at it, because a lot of what's here is those pirate captains. So if I empty all of them out and have them all out in the world for the players to encounter on their own, then that does leave this dungeon a little emptier. Because it looks like all of the main ships are like all the pirate captains' rooms. Although it'd be fun when they go to attack those pirate captains. A lot of them do have their loot on them, but maybe there's some in here that they can grab. Jolly Roger. There's a lot of creatures here. The hold is where Tentrix is. And Tentrix is, as written, with Scummer and Desecratus. So if I pull them all out, then Tentrix is left with just kind of random scrubs. Now, I could obviously give him whatever stat blocks to help give him some minions. I still like the idea of using the pirate captains in other fields and having that idea of, because it just makes it cooler to have them be their own boss fights versus having them just be minions of the boss. Oh, that's kind of a cool idea, Morgan. Enemies could be tricked by the player's ruse only to lure them into a trap. God, what? That happens. That's a great thing that happens. I'm trying to remember what's a good example. The Disney movie, The Great Mouse Detective, does it, and it's fabulous. It's a huge ruse where he thinks he's infiltrating the enemy's lair, and then he just walks right into a very elaborate trap and gets captured. It's fabulous. That could be a really fun thing here, though. God, that's okay. Now you got me thinking. If they fight their way through and they come to the lair and maybe they realize, oh man, nobody knows about us. We can come in here and pretend, and especially if they want to keep up that ruse. And then Tentrix just has like the slow clap, and like all the dudes appear, and everybody's on battle stations. That's a fun fucking idea. That's a fun idea. Colossal Octopus is with Tentrix. That's pretty cool. Yeah, so he's having things go their way. It's a cool picture, too. How big is Colossal Octopus? It is huge. CR5 with 4 tentacle attacks. That's pretty cool. So even without the bosses, he's got 4 bandits, an ogre zombie, and it looks like he basically kind of summons a Colossal Octopus during the fight. Big water hole in there, I guess. Tentrix does have the control gem for Scummer. I don't know if that's going to come up really, because I assume they'll just fight and kill Scummer. What do you have in your treasure chamber? Six potions of healing, 2 potions of greater healing, 2 potions of swimming, 1 potion of frost giant strength, 1 potion of diminution, and 1 potion of longevity. And the other one has an elemental gem emerald, obviously lots of gold, a folding boat, and a bunch of kind of descriptive loot. It was Lady Dorina Sternquarter. Miss where she's listed. Is she in the prison? She is in the prison. Okay. This hill contains the unconscious Lady Dorina Sternquarter, fighting pirates along the Sword Coast. She was kidnapped by the Black Armada. Realizing her potential worth, they brought her back to Tentric's lair. Tentric intends to ransom her back to the Lord's Alliance. Ooh, I wonder if I could replace her with somebody interesting in our campaign. Be a good opportunity since they have a prison there. Could do a player character. That'd be a pretty big find. All they'd have to be... I guess they could be captured by the Black Armada. I could put Kazan here, but Kazan feels like... Because Kazan was so involved in... That was my player character from King's Thunder. Was so involved in the Kraken Society. I should use him some point in this campaign. It'd have to be somebody that was worth capturing and worth something to somebody. And not a murder hobo, I guess. Second cell contains Ozlak Noxious, Dragonborn Bandit Captain, remnants of the crew, to ransom back to Lumberjos. Alright, well, I always like prison cells, opportunity for a nice role playing, let the party save people, so it's good to know that there's one here. I'm trying to figure out where they actually learn the location. I assume they just learned it from Tentrix. For where they need to go next. Where's the Tentrix fight? I didn't see anything in the treasure chamber that was like correspondence or something. Not seeing anything in the text about where they learn it from, but hopefully I can do a fun thing where, you know, Tentrix has a death scene or something. I can give them that information. But that is something to consider, is pulling the other pirate captains in other areas does kind of empty this dungeon a bit. But I may even, like I said, not use this map. There's other maps. Seafoot Games is a really cool one, which I need to look at. And that may fit what I'm thinking of doing a little bit better. It may be cool to showcase the fact that all these pirate lords, this was their home base and they're being sent out. But it won't have to be as obvious as like a bunch of ships just mashed together and sort of an, what do they call that? It's not octagon. What was the name of the... It's a shape that prisons use, where the prison thing is in the middle and the prisoners are around you. It's got a cool name to it. It was in Rime of the Frost Maiden. Shit, I can't remember now. It's the... I can't remember the name of the prison either. The one that's in the D&D movie at the beginning. Fuck. I don't remember. It doesn't matter. Panopticon. Thank you. Sounds like a transformer. That's exactly what I was looking for. Thank you. Drive me crazy. So I like chapter 4. I'm running all this pretty close as is, I think, in terms of the driftwood docks and the floating layer. And then that's right, chapter 4 actually includes all the purple rock stuff too, which is weird to me. I guess yeah, chapter 5 is just Escarl. That feels like a big act break, honestly. I guess we're really looking at it in 4 acts rather than 3. So Act 1 would have been Salt Marsh, Salvage Operation from Ghosts of Saltmarsh, those two. And then it would have been all of Chapter 1 from Call from the Deep, which is all of the Gunderlin Isle. Or Gunbarg. One of them is a city, one of the island, I don't remember. That's all Act 1. Act 2 was all of the Neverwinter Siege. And then Act 2, actually I wrote down that Act 2 also includes the 3 big quest chains after the Neverwinter Siege. So we're technically still in Act 2 or at the very end of Act 2 in my campaign. So Act 2 also include the Pirate Skyhold, which was something that spun out of Call from the Deep. The Sahuagin Stronghold, which came from the final enemy in Ghosts of Saltmarsh, and then the Styes, which came from Ghosts of Saltmarsh. So that's all at my Act 2. And then Act 3 will start after the Styes, and that will include a little bit of extra stuff before Chapter 4 of Call from the Deep, which is the stuff I'm talking about with the pirate captains and Omen's Isle and Narino, and including some of these side locations that are in Chapter 3. That'll be Act 3. And then Act 3 will also include Driftwood Docks and the floating lair. Then, to me, that's the end of Act 3, which is halfway through Chapter 4. And Act 4, the final act, begins as they go to Purple Rocks, which is the final location. It just happens to have multiple stages, which is Purple Rocks is the name of the town, I guess, the very Lovecraftian, creepy Kraken Society headquarter town on the top. And then they go down into Ascarl, which are the ruins, which the Mind Flayers are now holed up in the underwater ruins. So that's all Act 4, which includes the second half of Chapter 4 and all of Chapter 5. Chapter 5 just being the one big mega dungeon. So that's how I'm going to be looking at the adventure right now in terms of breaking up the different acts. Obviously, there's level ups throughout those acts, but the main between each act, there's definitely a level up happening. So they'll level up after the Styes, and then I think they'll do all the other stuff after the Styes, and then when we stop for the act break after the floating layer, I'll level them again to 10, I believe, and then there'll be 10 for Purple Rocks, and then I could see probably getting them to 11 before they go into Ascarl. So then there may be actually 11 for the entire final dungeon. I could probably see myself doing that. Which I think is still pretty good pacing. If I don't make this section I'm about to plan too long with all these different locations and stuff, which, I mean, they're all pretty small locations. And then we've got, yeah, the Driftwood Docks. And, you know, although I haven't talked about Sea Tower of Urfon, I want to do that one too. There's got to be a way. Maybe instead of a pirate captain being there, Captain Callus can just also mention it. I don't know how much. I'm basically giving them all the information that they need, because they're not going to be able to talk to another like friendly NPC for like the rest of the campaign once they talk to Callus, I feel like. Because he'll tell them, all right, here's what you need to get to Tentrix. And then once they do all of their stuff and then get to Tentrix, they'll basically just get the information from Tentrix. Like, okay, we need to, you know, get to this final location and be done with it, other than maybe finding some like rescuable NPCs or something. So I do feel like I need to give them a lot of information from Callus at the time. I guess Callus could always show up somewhere else later. He always shows up when it's conveniently necessary. I need to start getting these maps on the board, though, so I can really start planning with tokens and dynamic lighting and all that. That's a real good chunk of the work. I feel like we've done a lot of the like storyboarding so far, and what I really need to do is that probably not as fun, but maybe more fun for some people to see, which is the actual physical, like putting maps into Roll20 and putting the tokens on there and getting the room-to-room prep versus all the overarching story stuff. But it's got to start there, and then it can go into the actual Roll20 prep of it all. But if you notice, I'm not talking about the Styes much anymore, because we've had extra craftings about that, and the chips are going to fall where they may with that one. Hopefully it's not a TPK. I don't have a lot of ways to get out of that one at this point. Hopefully the players know to back off and let people's brains be eaten if that happens. All right, I think that is going to do it for this Monday edition of Crafting the Deep. As always, if you enjoy the content, please do check out patreon.com/ Rogue Watson, shouts to Platinum Patrons, Joe, Will, Thomas, Dan, Brennan, Zen, Center, Eclectic, Roleplayer, Roll, Christopher, Corey, Big Nut, John F, John L, Eric, Tyler, Nathan, Crystal, Counselor, Andrew, Dell, The Reldron, Cap 2079, Stephanie, Patrick, Jason, Ismail, Ahmed, Libby, Spud, Sharni, David, William, Warden, Cutest Fox, Harold, Sam, Eudaimonia, LLC, and Gold Patrons, RPG, Papercraft, Pretty Boy, and Yuma, The Lizard Lounge, Sam, Jerome, Nathan, Fasica, Tortoise, Scott, Ruffus, Karen, Jerry, Glenn, Marcus, and Mark. Thank you all very much for support. I will see you for some more crafting on Thursday.